Well, what's up, guys? We have a very special show today for you. So, if you were on for the first one, I apologize. Thank you for hanging on with us. I wanted to introduce my friend from the car business, Nick Chivinski. He's an amazing car guy. He's done all kinds of things from running a dealership to every single aspect of the car business that you could possibly imagine. But he is working at an amazing company called Dealer Savvy as the vice president of sales. And I want to pick his brain about building great sales teams. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guest today, Nick Chivinski. All right, Nick, we did it. We have the clearance. I don't know how long it's going to last for, but we're doing it.
Let's roll. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Awesome. So if you wouldn't mind just diving deep a little bit more into that car biz experience, because I think it's important for people to understand like that you've pretty much done everything you could possibly do.
There's so much in the car business that you can do. So I don't know if I feel a little more humble. I don't know that I've done it all. And I've probably not done it all, as good as some other people do some things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But definitely it started when I was really young in the car business, 20 years old. Started at a little used car dealership, moved into the franchise world, worked at a big store selling 500 cars a month. More recently, I was at a store that was in my hometown. More of a family-run operation. GM and CDJR all on one campus. Real good family vibe, great atmosphere. I've worn the finance guy hat, used car director hat, general manager hat. In between there, I own my own place. I have my own little independent dealership for a few years. Since then after that, left retail, went over to Cox Automotive as I was on the Auto Trader team and then the auto performance manager for the majority of it, helping dealers just in all over the place with operations, inventory management, you name it. So yeah, it's been a fun ride. This business has been incredibly rewarding for me.
I think it's important too that when you're working with dealers that you kind of have some of that car business experience, because I think it brings more value than just as if you were just a regular thing, right? You can really understand and have that experience to sort of back it up. And I think people appreciate that too, especially in sales. I know that a lot of times when I'm speaking with dealers, we're talking about running businesses too, and they're getting my experience of running that. And I wanted to bring that to teams because I think a lot of dealerships think that they need a lot, like really big sales teams and lots of things, but the climate of the car business is changing. What do you think is better? Like, a small, more like robust team or building a big sales team? Tell me about your thoughts about the size of the team.
Obviously that's going to depend, on the store. But I'll tell you, I've gotten to work in, both environments. We're really big store with 30 plus salespeople, 15 F&I managers, 15 sales managers. I mean, it was a whole lot of folks in that environment. And that was very, very, very process. I mean, everybody had to follow each step the same way, with a big team like that. And they managed to maintain the culture. They cared about their customers. They made it work. We made it work, I guess I should say. And then I've worked with a team where we were, when I started my last dealership that I was at, we were a little bit smaller. Maybe 5, 6 salespeople. We ended up, when I left, I think we had 12. That was headed right into COVID, so some things changed, right? As COVID happened as well. But I think the size of the team has to fit the culture of the dealership. It has to fit the market. And I think that it has to fit that management and leadership style as well, right? What they're really looking for.
I think that's so important. So the bigger the team, the stronger the process. And if you have, and as long as the culture is working together to make a successful team. Let's dive into the culture aspect. What about the culture that really made things kind of click and spin and work for you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, my computer's ringing. I mean, I learned that like
Because
culture
it's a
was
live show.
important.
This is what happens.
I learned the culture is important, like probably like the worst way possible. I got my first opportunity to lead at a at a small dealership, real small dealership, 3 or 4 sales guys, and I just burned 2 of them out. Right. I was just like I was young. I was in my 20s. I was just Mr. Aggressive. Like and I learned from that, very quickly because, I learned that I had to go find and hire 2 more salespeople, right? Because I
Yeah.
lost 2. So, thankfully I ran into some good mentorship after that. But I think, from a culture in a car dealership, I think it starts out with service, like not servicing the car, but servicing your clients, like being a servant leader and being a servant to your customers, and then a servant to your people. I think that's the approach. I know that's the approach that's worked the best for me, especially later in my career.
Like, what can I do to help you become more successful? What do you need from me to be more successful? We're working on, what is best for our customer? What is best for the team in general, right? Are we all working for the common goal of making everybody in the organization as happy as possible and working hard, or working maybe smarter, not harder? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, and I think you have to include, like, I mean, it doesn't mean this isn't like this isn't like a lovey-dovey everybody type of thing, right? As much as it is like, and you still have to hold people accountable. You're not doing them a service. You're not serving them if you're not holding them accountable. You're not serving them if you're unwilling to jump into the confrontation when the confrontation needs to happen. And so many times, and I'll put this on myself. I won't put it on anybody else. So many times in my career, I've avoided that confrontation that I should have had taken with an employee, and they suffered because of it. That's not service to your client. That's not service to your employee, right? That's not service to the people you're leading. That's failing them. So, yeah, I think it's on both sides of that. I think it comes with an extreme to it as well. Yeah.
I think, Nick, you're spot on. You're not serving people in your organization if you're not holding them accountable. And they don't like it. Okay. And if you've had some diva salespeople, okay,
Never, ever.
and those are hard, right? Because you're like, you want to keep those guys happy, but they also need to be held accountable. And so, and we run into this sometimes. It's like, well, and how do you kind of manage, your superstars and
Yeah.
being held accountable?
Yeah, well, listen, it starts with yourself, right? I think, when I think back on times where I've struggled more with that, I could point to some specific instances where maybe I wasn't holding myself accountable to what I promised them, right? And that opens the door. That opens the door for the other side, right? So we always got to start looking in. And I'll contradict you a little bit. I think everybody wants to be held accountable. I think it feels good to get held accountable. It means somebody cares, right? Like nobody wants to run amok in their job. So I think once you do that and it's consistent, even with the guy who was let's call him a diva, or the gal who was a diva about like the position, and I still think that you end up getting, the respect factor there, overcomes all of that stuff, and they start to see it inwardly, right, and change a little bit, that they become, I've had some of my people that have become, the finance manager, and then, the team leader, and then the general sales managers that I've worked with. They were salespeople to start, and they were that guy, right? They were the, oh, they stole my up, or somebody moved my cheese, whatever it is, right? But that accountability, just to bring it back to that, I think that people want to be held accountable. They may not tell you that, and they may give you pushback at first. But I think if you're consistent with it, like that's what makes the change.
And I think that consistency is the key too. And it's having, so I think that's been one of my biggest struggles, is that I can't do it. It's just that, like, maybe I don't do it on a consistent basis, which is maybe where I've failed in the past. And so I guess maybe one of my blocks would be like, I just don't, I'm just not in the mood to do that today. Like, can it just, can this just
Yeah,
be one less thing that I have on my plate?
we all
And
have
these
those
are
days.
things that you're
Yeah.
going through as a business owner, right? Where you're just like, okay, is this a battle that I want to have today?
Yeah.
And like a marriage, you got to pick and choose your battles, but I
Mhm.
think having that
Yeah.
balance, consistency, and picking and choosing your battles, I think is worthy. But let's go back to, I think everybody wants to be held accountable. Um, because you think it's more about the structure, like people need that structure to thrive in.
Yeah, I mean, listen, reflect on yourself and think about the time that you got away with, oh, well, I pulled that off, right? So I can probably pull it off again, right? I can probably cut that corner one more time. I think back to when I was, on the floor and I was in the sales process. I didn't go on the test drive. They still bought the car.
Mhm,
No big deal, right? Now, maybe less people go for test drives with their customers today than they did 20 years ago when I started, right? But
mhm,
that was part of the
mhm.
process, right? And you didn't skip it.
Right,
And but I would have let that kept going and would have skipped it with everybody. My closing percentage would have dropped off, and it would have cost me money. But I had a manager who was willing to say, no, 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 listen, it doesn't matter if you sold the car. We go on every single test drive, right? And we go with the customers, and there's reasons, and here they are. And so I think that that's what it's kind of rooted in, right? I mean, it's almost a relief that, hey, they're not going to let me get away with that. So then I know that I got to get it done, right? So
right.
as opposed to they let me get away with it, and then next thing you know, I've got a bunch of bad habits.
Yes, like, hey, I still managed to, hit the number even though I didn't do, but then your number falls off later
Yeah,
because you were sliding on your success, right? When you could have been building it. I get that. I get that. Now look, you're building a big sales team. I don't know how big it is, but I wanted to see, like, how you kind of set up your sales organization, right? So just for my own knowledge, we've done it a couple different ways here at Royalty because here, let me tell you guys, in business, they don't you can I've worked at many different companies, and it's like you're trying to figure out which one works best for you and your company and your organization, and it's different for everybody. So, we do a little trial and error, but I wanted to find out from you, as you're sort of set with this task of, okay, I'm coming into this role, I got to build this sales team. Where do you start first, and then how do you organize it so it's scalable? And I know
yeah.
that's a huge question.
It's a big question. I'm going to try not to give it too long of an answer,
It's
and and,
okay.
and be
You can break
very
it into parts.
very very candid. So when I came over to Savvy Dealer 6 months ago, they had no sales team, nobody running the
Mhm,
sales, nobody running the marketing. Period. They've been around for 13 years. They're a solid company. They've got a solid book of business. They've got a decent number of dealers, a lot,
mhm,
rooftops. But they've just grown by word of mouth. Dealers would tell other friends about them at 20 groups. Maybe invite Adam, our founder, in to speak at a 20 group. They would, some of that type of growth was what they had. But even that wasn't really pointed in a direction, right? I mean, they would focus on it, on hey, we want sales, we want growth. Then they'd get all these clients that they're implementing, and then we weren't focusing on sales, and then the vicious cycle would keep on going. So two things. One that's really good about that is everybody that came to them came organically, and they're very 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 sticky, good clients. They stick around. They believe in the process, they believe in the system, they know and trust in what the company's doing, right? So it makes us very, 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 stable
mhm,
as a company, a great base to build off of. It means also that they spent the last 13 years developing internal people that do the service and the development, and so they've got a team of folks there that they can scale this thing because of the employees that they have, right? And their employee to dealer ratio right now is really high. So two huge things about the company that make it
mhm,
give us a jumping off point to go from, on that side.
mhm.
So we had when I say no sales, we no dedicated CRM. Our website was outdated. So like all of the marketing was jumping off, right? So from all that. Um, So like, obviously the first thing was understanding the company and how it works, the culture, and starting to build a pipeline just on my own. So, I've got, reaching out to my industry contacts and reaching out to, our current clients and building up that referral base. Hit 2 conferences. We hit Digital Dealer and then NADA. That helped us, both of which helped us build, pipeline and momentum, heading into it. Built our social presence, did different marketing things for NADA pre-show. And that's all really come to fruition here. We've got a really solid
And let
pipeline.
me just interject, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just interject too, because their marketing was so gorgeous and beautiful and on point that I was like, I was very impressed with it when I saw it at NADA. You guys did a phenomenal job. I mean, just
thank you.
Really stuck out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to.
I was like sometimes I get on a roll and I need to be like, hey, stop. So where we currently, we've got a good pipeline. We're continuing to grow that. We've got, through these conferences that we've gone through, and I've just learned so much in 6 months about a side of the business that I wasn't a part of, right? Because even when I was with Cox Automotive, I was kind of within their ecosystem. I wasn't really outside of it, interacting with other vendors that much. And those relationships, meeting you and the relationship that we've developed, and like all of those little relationships have really led to some very fruitful conversations for us. And so we've got an individual that does, our first kind of like, not really hired because he's more of a partner. He's more outside sales, but somebody that we partner with, his name's Terry Gibson and does a really good job for us. He's got a lot of connections. He's been around the industry a very long time. He went to the show with us. He helped us build our booth, the whole thing. So, real great stuff there. So he was kind of our first one. And then we've got a young guy that we've just promoted from internally, that's going to start out like implementing some of our clients to get to working with the clients, and then we're going to work him over, and we've got some pipeline that we're going to be able to hand off to him that he can start to work. And that's really like for us, how big is it going to be? We don't know. So I don't know exactly what the path is, and what pieces we're gonna drop in where. We're being very, very open to all that. But we kind of, if I had my way, because of the culture that we currently have, I would grow it up. I would grow it from the inside, right, and bring people on. We'd have inside sales reps that would become regional sales reps, right, and then we would hire and they would train the next inside sales rep, as we grow those teams out. In a perfect world, I'd love to see it do it that way. I also see a world where growth explodes and we need to hire a bunch of people fast, and then that's going to be fun too, because we got to make sure they match. We're very dealer first, and we want to make sure that we've got employees that are all very, very dealer first.
Yeah, and I think too is that you get these people that just, as long as like they care too, and then of course our dealers, like they have a high expectation of service, right? And of course we want to make sure that we deliver on that on a regular basis. So I'm super, super excited about that. All right, listen, if you had to give a new sales manager advice, not a salesperson, but a manager, a new sales manager, some advice, okay, what would that be?
Listen to understand your people and your customers. That would be the one piece of advice I would have, and take that with you everywhere you go. Take it home when you're having conversations with your significant other and your children as well, right? But listen to understand. I think this business is so fast paced, that a lot of people, I run into this constantly, that they are listening to respond instead of listening to understand. And those are two very different things. So I think that's a skill that I fail at on a daily basis. And I'm constantly trying to hone. We all fail at something, right? Every day. Like nobody's going to be perfect. Yes. This is not an easy one to get. But I've been trying for a very long time to get better at it every day. So that would be the one thing. I got that piece of advice, and it was changing for me once I started to realize that. Like I listen to the whole answer before you start to formulate your response. You'll have time to respond.
I think that it's so true. I can't be, and I am one of those people too that like can't always get it out right away. Like, and so I, it's like, can I finish first? Like, can I just finish? And so you can always find those people that are just ready to respond because of that. It's just the way that I talk. But, I think that is sort of like the Spock of sales too, is going into like ultra listening mode. Like, what are they really trying to communicate to you? And if you can kind of understand those needs too, I think that also helps in sales. So that's a great one. I'm loving that answer. And I think a lot of times here's what I get a lot in management, and I'm going to find out if you get this too. Do you get a lot of questions? I hear questions. Okay. So I see so many people with like people at the door. And how do you empower people? Like sometimes I get these calls and I'm just like, this is not a question that I need to be involved in, right? Like this is something you could have answered yourself. So where is the disconnect between like, or are they just kind of like wanting to talk to you because they, want to be, they got to have a reason to call. I don't know. People are so weird.
I think, well,
but how do you manage all the questions?
Yeah. No, that's great. And that's an awesome point. I think over time with your teams, you can build that, because I think there's a couple things that are happening there. One, I think the employee, if they know how to do it and you're thinking that it's something they can do on their own, it probably is, but they probably don't have the confidence or the trust or feel as though you have the trust in them to accomplish it. So they're coming to you to verify the answer, right? So I think how you handle that interaction is important. And you want to make sure that like they leave that conversation feeling confident that they had it right and they've got it right the next time. And I think too, you've got to treat failure or screw ups or mess ups or whatever they are. You've got to treat those as opportunities, not as failures or screw ups or mess ups, right? Opportunities to learn, because that empowers your people to trust themselves and say, it's okay. All right. So I broke it. There's nothing you can break that we can't fix. So like, I'd rather you break it and learn how not to break it, right? The next time. Right. So, I'd rather them pushing, you'd rather have them pushing the edge than holding themselves back. Because the fact of the matter is, if you get too many questions, that's slowing you down and it's slowing them down, right?
I think, the biggest practice that I need to do is, and I know it, right? I know I should be like, well, what would you do in this situation? But it's so quick for me to just give them the answers sometimes instead of allowing them to come to the right answer on their own. And I think that as managers, you're just not allowing them to sort of have that empowering thing, like to build their confidence. Like, yeah, you came up with the right answer. And so maybe the next time that they have a question, they're like, oh, I have the confidence to come up with it on my own. I don't need her to give me the answer. Right.
Yeah. 100%.
So that's my practice.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my ego talking. or my lack of patience or timing. I don't know. It's a bunch of things.
Well, but you're gonna get 1,000 things thrown at you, right? So like, are you gonna stop? Well, that's the question. Like you're probably thinking of the 8 other things that you got to get done, so I can just answer this and he can move on. Or you can take 4 minutes to ask 3 or 4 good questions that make him realize that he already had the answer, and then but that 3 or 4 minutes that you spent saves you the question the next time. So I would argue that it's worth the time. But then I'm also, I'm not sitting in your chair with 5 clients on hold waiting to yell at me or something broke or some other emergency. I mean, you're in business, right? I mean, there's always an emergency somewhere, right? So that's
oh yeah. Oh well, you're hurtling down traffic and running through the airport and talking to 6 people at the same time and trying to show up and do it right, and then you have internet.
No doubt.
Oh, yeah. It's always a good time. Well, listen, Nick, I can't begin to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time,
Absolutely.
your knowledge. You scored a big fan by me, guys. Listen, this company is too legit to quit. Obviously 13 years of building organically has got to speak volumes, and now they've got the support behind it. I'm going to watch it take off, and with Nick at the helm, I know that they're going to do a real successful job. So thank you so much. I would totally hire you in a minute, but I know I cannot take you away from a great company. So thank you to you and to Savvy Dealer for your time, and thank you to everybody that gets to watch this. And I hope that you get a chance to work with Nick. So thank you
This
again.
was fun. Thank you so much. I appreciated your time. You were so generous. I appreciate it. And thanks to everybody who was out there, watching.
Yeah, thank you. All right, now if you liked, subscribed, and got anything out of it, please do us a favor and share it with your friends. Thank you, and have a good day.